What if it rained food? What if Earth was a cube? What if we had 9 lives? What if bits could fly? It's absurd. If money grew on trees, if we didn't have knees, if we walked through life slightly magnetical, it's absurd. Absurd Hypotheticals.
Hello everybody and welcome to Absurd Hypotheticals, the show where we overthink dumb questions so you don't have to. I'm your host Marcus Lehner, and I'm joined here today by Chris Yee, Ben Storms, and special guest Jason Paul. Say hi, Jason.
Hello out there in Radioland.
We don't get to say hi this time.
We don't get to say
Jason
hi this
says
time.
hi.
Well, you guys are always here. You get to say hi all the time. This
That's
time,
true.
it's just Jason gets to say hi to everybody. So, Jason, we actually met at a bar, which is a great way to start.
Go on.
We got
Was it-
into
I
a
think-
fight. It was really vicious, but then it all worked out.
Oh no, that was somebody else. We both got into 2 separate fights, and then
Oh, was it 2 separate
then the
fights?
priest, the rabbi, and the minister walked in. They're like, guys, we all agree, no fighting. And then everyone broke up, and then we started hanging out.
Okay. None of that was true.
None of that was true. But actually, we did meet at a bar over at, I think, was it Night Shift Brewery?
That sounds right.
So I was there doing a board game event, and you came to play one of my games, and we hung out for a bit, and we were chatting. And what I remember is that I talked about the concept of my podcast, and your response was, "Oh my god, I love nonsense,"
Which is perfect for our show.
which is the only qualification you need to be a guest on our show.
I really do love nonsense. I wish I didn't, and there are people who clearly want me not to, but I love nonsense.
Never give it up. Never ever give it up.
Can I let it down?
Please don't.
Never
run around or hurt anybody. That was the other thing the priest, the rabbi, and the minister agreed on.
We can all agree on one thing.
What's that?
What you just said.
That was 5 things, though. That was more than one
Yeah,
thing,
that
Chris.
was. Well, you can't just have one of them. You have to have all of them together. They don't
That's-
work
you have to-
separately.
You have to listen to the podcast that you're on so that you can respond appropriately to all the things.
See, love nonsense.
So I think that gives us leave to kind of just to jump right into the nonsense. And our nonsense for today is, what if humans had to hibernate? So I thought when we first started looking at this question, I thought I was going to use bears as my basis for what hibernation, lengths are. And I'm like, yeah, bears do like 3 months because that's how long winter is. I didn't realize bears hibernate for like 6+ months, like 7 months a lot of the time.
It's weird because, like, in my research, that number varied a lot. I guess the general consensus is like 5 to 7 months, but like there were some places that were saying 3.
Lazy ass bears. Jesus.
Yeah, I know.
So basically, everyone is hibernating, and I'm saying, and for me, I'm saying everybody hibernates at the same time.
Oh, and Ben is sitting out on this question because we only have time for 3 questions,
Right.
really, or 3 answers, really. So
I am the peanut gallery.
Yeah.
We'll go
No,
from
you're in
there.
hibernation.
Oh, well, that seems less fun.
Well, yeah, no, hibernation isn't particularly fun in and of itself.
No.
I could use 6 months of sleep, though. That's what I generally feel like.
God, so could I. So desperately.
Too bad, you're here.
Yep, I'm here instead. Anyway.
So my first thought was, if everyone is hibernating during the winter, the entire country, the entire world is literally asleep at the wheel. There's nobody manning the controls for anything because everyone is asleep.
Oh, yeah, we said that it happens at the same time for everyone, right? Instead of staggered.
Yeah, I said that too, Chris. You should really listen to the podcast.
I did not hear you say that. When did you say that?
He just said it.
Oh,
He really did.
Right now, like a minute ago,
Yeah.
on this
Really?
thing that you're on.
I must
Yeah.
have tuned out.
He was hibernating.
Yeah.
How many times did we make that joke this episode?
Hopefully this is the last time we need to.
Is there any chance of that? I mean,
No.
seriously.
Zero.
Is there any chance of that?
Absolute 0.
All right, number one thing that I looked into, first one, is power. If nobody is at the power plant, does everything break down? Generally, the answer is yes. They need maintenance, they need people there. But it's not all doom and gloom. So the 2 main sources of power in the United States, which is where I can find all the data for, are powered by coal and natural gas plants. I'm going to start with coal plants, which power over 30% of the U.S. So the power plant that I was using as my basis for how these would work is actually not in the U.S. It's actually in England, a power plant called Drax. So this one is actually a huge power plant that powers about 700,000 homes. And the reason I like this Drax power plant is the number one thing with the coal power plants is that they need to be fed with coal every single day. And for the most of the coal power plants, it's manually taken out of the train cars that comes in, and put on whatever belts or conveyors go into the thing, and then processed. Drax has a system where the train cars that come in, they come into the building, then the bottom opens up and it autonomously falls on the belt that needs to feed the rest of the plant. So this one has a system in place already where you could use it autonomously, which is good.
Yes, that is a good start.
So as long as you can keep sending trains full of coal, you can theoretically keep this plant running with just purely automated. But it actually gets tricky, the amount of coal that you need to run a coal power plant. The Drax plant, for example, requires 4 loads of coal every day. And when I say load, I mean train load. I do not mean train car.
Full
So
train.
an entire
Okay.
train.
When I say train load, I mean 90 train cars
Whoa.
Okay.
full of 100 tons of coal each.
Trains are big.
So 4 of those is 360 train cars each day that goes into this power plant. So if we need to do this for 6 months, I get to do my favorite thing on the show, which is take a whole bunch of numbers and multiply them together into one really big number. So a single train car is 60 feet long. So if we have 4 train loads at 90 cars each, at 60 foot per car, and then 180 days, which make up those 6 months, we're going to need a total of 3.8 million feet of train that are all full of coal, and we're going to need to set that up and have that ready to go day 1 of our hibernation. To put it a little bit into perspective, 300.8 million feet of train is 736 miles long, which is the equivalent of a fully loaded train stretching from Boston to Columbus, Ohio. But this is just to power 700,000 homes. If we wanted to power 30% of the homes in the US with coal power, we're going to need 54.8 times this amount of trains and rails. So now we are going to need 3.6 million train cars full of coal at once.
And I thought your initial 90 car reveal was a big number.
Right.
That's what they do in real life every day.
Yeah.
That happens. That's not me multiplying numbers.
That's what actually happens.
That's how many freaking trains go into this place.
Right.
So we're going to need 3.6 million train cars. And I was like, well, that seems like a lot of trains.
It's a big,
We might need
big
to
ask right
build
there.
some more trains.
Yeah.
Don't need to. There are 96 million train cars already that exist in the United States. What in the hell, trains? That's so many.
That's a lot of
Wait.
trains.
So
How does that...
that doesn't make. Wait, hold on. Back up.
That doesn't sound right.
What's the
Yes,
population
there are-
of the U.S. again?
327 million. So there's one train car for every 4 people.
Okay. That checks out.
Which is kind of cool, because I didn't think about that until now. But yeah, there's a lot of train cars.
Yeah.
And actually, the amount of train line is kind of tough to judge what's usable, but there's more than enough actual train line built that you could make this train just go and go and go and go and go and go and go. So, conclusion, you can actually keep coal power plants going. They could theoretically work. And then we move on to natural gas, which is actually 35% of our power. The natural gas plants are usually fed directly from a pipeline from the extraction site. So you don't really have too many issues there keeping them going automated. I read a bunch about nuclear power. So nuclear power, powers 20% of the US. And there's been talk of automating different systems in the nuclear power plant, but apparently maintaining the equilibrium not to, blow up the power plant usually does still need human input and does pose some pretty complicated problems. So I think the nuclear probably is not going to happen. I think we got to shut those down for the winter. And the last 20% is your solar, your hydropower, your wind power, your biomass power, of probably about which half you could get going. Your wind power plants are probably fine. Your hydro plants are probably okay. Solar of course would work. Biomass I'm not so sure about. You got your 30% plus 35%. You lose 20% nuclear power, but you're getting about 60 to 70% of the energy that you can maintain without anyone directly involved, assuming you plan to automate some of the processes in these plants, which is pretty good considering if everyone's asleep for half the year. I think the energy consumption is going to go down a little bit.
Yeah, probably.
Just a smidge. So maybe you only need that 60-70%.
I mean, it'll probably go down significantly.
Yeah, I mean, it might just be 50, might be 50%.
You just know that like half people are gonna like forget and leave their lights on the whole time and wake up and be like, oh God, what did I do?
Your electric, what if you just don't pay your electric bill like the last month before you hibernate, and then it's like 7 months overdue when you wake up?
Well, they're not gonna notice. They were all asleep over there. See? It's perfect. Foolproof system.
Well, they'll notice when they wake up.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah,
You don't think bill systems are automating? Come on, guys.
it overdraws your account every month automatically. So that's the power. And then the other one I looked at was food. We're gonna need food when we wake up, and the question is, food only lasts so long. And so I was wondering how long things take to get from like the farms over to like supermarkets and things. Because it's still fairly fresh at the supermarket, and they actually get them there pretty quick, like in a matter of days. For most fresh produce gets from the farm to the supermarkets. So the problem is you can't have it just sitting around, and you can't kind of like set it up to grow, because most of the produce that we make usually takes somewhere between like 6 weeks and like 4 months to grow. So if you start growing it before the hibernation, I mean, also you're trying to grow it in the winter, which also is not helpful. If you start trying to grow it before the winter, it's going to be done and ready, and then just kind of
die.
Yeah, it'll just die before you get to it on the other side. So what we really need to do is kind of like store it. You have to store it, and ideally you store it in cold storage in refrigerated space. So I went online and I looked at a couple papers, and currently, according to the 2018 Global Cold Chain Alliance Global Cold Storage Capacity Report, the Global Cold Chain Alliance is a pretty cool name for someone who just like counts freezers.
It's pretty intense that global is in there twice.
Yeah, so it's the Global Cold Chain Alliance, and they released the Global Cold Storage Capacity Report. So according to that report, the U.S. currently has 4.6 billion cubic feet of cold storage space available, which doesn't really mean anything, because I can't envision how much that is. So my question is just, is it enough? To figure out how much we need, I'm going to simplify our food intake into a single food. And a favorite of the podcast is to simplify that into the humble chicken nugget.
We haven't done it in a while.
Time-honored tradition.
Time-honored tradition of converting all food to chicken nuggets so that we can do math on it.
I think last time we did it was like episode 20-something.
The first time I actually looked up today because Marcus was asking for the number. It was actually our 7th episode. Was the first instance of the chicken nugget as a unit of measurement.
All right. Well, anyway, we get this measurement from a report in the International Journal of Food Properties, and the paper called "Shrinkage of Chicken Nuggets During Deep Fat Frying," because somebody needed to know why they shrunk.
Yeah, why is this information important? Like, why do they need to know if it shrinks or not?
I mean, it might be relevant for like a spreadsheet from like a dude at McDonald's. Like, he might need to know.
I guess.
But in any case, thanks to this report, I know the density of a chicken nugget to be about 67.4 pounds per cubic foot. Now, let's say, along with packaging and airspace, you can get them packed densely enough that about 60% of your storage weight is pure chicken nugget. So, taking 4.6 billion cubic feet of storage space and saying it's 60% full of chicken nuggets, that gives us a total of 186 billion pounds of chicken nuggets that we could store in our current cold storage, which is a lot of chicken nuggets. And the average person eats 4 pounds of food a day, or in our case, all chicken nuggets each day. And so with 327 million people in the US, we need 1.3 billion pounds of food each day, which makes our 186 billion pounds of chicken nuggets last us 143 days, which is basically the perfect amount of time to just like get in gear and grow some crops and get them to supermarkets. So societally, as far as just basic power and food, we're in good shape, guys. We are in actually quite good shape. And I expected the whole thing to crash down and to have to solve some problems, but I don't have to. The world's just good and prepared to chill out for 6 months.
It's good to know that in case we spontaneously have to hibernate, we're prepared.
Well, if it was tomorrow, we'd be a little bit screwed, but we could
need some
prepare and
prep
get it to
time.
work.
Yeah.
We could make it happen. And I'm going to now pass the baton over to Jason. What do you have?
So that was interesting. But I would say that is the kind of infrastructure questions that we never care about now. So it's hard to imagine us caring about it if we're hibernating. We would care if it didn't work, obviously.
Yeah, some people suddenly care about infrastructure when the lights go out.
That is correct. Everyone cares about infrastructure when the lights go out. Everyone cares about infrastructure when it causes problems. But if it doesn't cause problems, nobody cares about it. What we care about are what I'm hoping to talk about, which is related to the issues of fear, money, and sex. So obviously, the first thing that you want to know when you're hibernating is your stuff, is your house going to be safe? And while I understand the premise is that we all wake up at the same time, I don't think anyone grants the premise that we all wake up at exactly the same time.
Right.
In exactly the same way.
Yeah, there's gonna be a few weeks of leeway on each side.
And those weeks of leeway require a massive level of home security. And I think that you have to be prepared to make sure that your stuff is locked up and saved in a way. And as much as we see ADT TADs now, imagine a world where there's no police available to secure homes and no chance that you're in your home. So this is just like basically thieving free for all.
Right.
And that brings me to that is a concern. And yes, we have to solve that, but no one's overly interested in actually solving it. What they're interested in is selling you things to solve it, which brings me into money and brings me into the next set of things, which is the advertising space when it comes to this situation.
It always comes down to advertising, doesn't it?
It really does.
It has to come down to advertising. And so the point is, imagine all of the various hibernating products that you would need. So you need security, and then you need something, obviously there would be self-help gurus who would be inclined to tell you that you need to get the right feng shui in your hibernation space. People already tell you spend a third of your life in bed, make sure your mattress is such and such and such and such. Imagine if the same thing was the case, but with respect to hibernation. The quality of your hibernation pod, or whatever you're hibernating, or it's caves, or it's actually, that is one thing I still might need, maybe our later friend will answer, but wherever the person is hibernating, they want it to be the exact sort of feng shui. And what are the accoutrements? What are the things that make your hibernation great? Right now, people talk about beauty rest, and I have my morning face. Imagine the skincare and other kind of product opportunities that present themselves in a world in which people have been getting, I don't know exactly how bears don't have the same vanity we do. So I wonder how people would look up and, what are there going to be salons that sole purpose is you've been hibernating for 6 months. Now look your best with hibernation, back to normal, the back to normal spa.
Yeah, use that hibernation glow to your advantage.
It could be a glow, or if you think about people who are in comas and bodily functions that continue. I don't actually know what happens with bear's hair and how much they grow, but if human hair grew at the same pace, people would be pretty furry and gross by the time that they ended up out of hibernation. And since people would be furry and gross by the time they end out of hibernation, that is another opportunity to sell people stuff. And then this also brings me sort of to this next level of hibernation problems, which is the question of what does hibernating do to the dating and online dating worlds? So the question that one has to ask oneself is, how long does one need to be dating before one hibernates with someone? Is hibernating a social activity, or is it entirely on your own? Does everyone want to hibernate on their own, or is there a point at which you have to hibernate together? And the question is, this is a very serious relationship point, because now you could be dating someone for a while and you don't have to make a big commitment. But now you're dating someone for 3 months. Hibernation's coming up in 3 months.
Could interrupt the
Do you
flow.
want to, do you want to hibernate alone? And is there a stigma?
That's like the next step in your relationship.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, the question is there a stigma to hibernating alone, or does some people want to do that? It could become the case that everyone is terrified of hibernating alone, and thus this is forcing people into sort of an endless string of relationships where, they really are like getting paired off each and every hibernation season. And then it's also, if you hibernate with someone for 6 months, you're not actually moving the relationship forward 6 months because you didn't learn things, you didn't do the relationship things in those 6 months. You're still stuck in hibernation mode. So, like, but have you jumped ahead or have you not jumped ahead? And that's sort of a very important question that would need to be answered. And I think it's very dangerous because, do you want to be in a, is this going to get everybody like pre-married?
Yeah, exactly.
Because, you spend 6 months hibernating together. You're not going to get sick of them while you're hibernating. Unless, of course, this is where I don't quite know my hibernation exactly. This is where I'm looking forward to learning more about the physiology. But I don't believe that you're like actually like straight up coma for the entire hibernation time. Maybe you are, in which case there's no thing. But my guess is there'd be like some stray amount of just like movement. And let's say you kick your partner in hibernation state.
Oh no.
Well,
or you
boy.
snore. If you snore.
Well, you could easily snore. And this would be something that they might not, and the question is, do people go on pre-hibernations? Like, do you have to, like, chill for a week?
Do a trial run.
A trial one where you, like, do nothing for a week?
Just sit there.
Like, can you get time off for work? I'm sorry, boss. I've got to, do a week of pre-hibernation.
Yeah, I got this chick I'm only sort of into, and I got to find out if I can put up with her for the next 6 months.
For 6 months. Yes. Well, we don't want to get all gender normative. Those same rules apply, I believe, to our current world as we shouldn't be gender normative.
True.
Everyone could be hibernating with who they want.
That is very true.
Although I question it really would sort of screw up the, all the people trying to maintain lots and lots of different relationships and dating different people. And it's like, okay, well, honey, dude, are you going to hibernate with me?
Yeah.
Well,
I got a work trip that night,
Yeah.
my hibernation night, and I don't know if I'm going to make it back this winter.
No excuse.
I got this long... the work is calling me in for hibernation, honey. It's a work hibernation retreat. But I thought that was banned. No, they're banned for most people. But not really for, I work in a very special field.
Yeah, my boss, he doesn't take no for an answer.
It's a union thing.
It's a team building exercise.
It's a team building exercise. I mean, I don't think that would fly. So I think this could really reorder how all of dating works and reorder how all of advertising works. And I think there would freak people absolutely freak people out of respect to the security question.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a moment, too, for the relationship on the final day of the hibernating, where it's like, you wake up and you look at each other and you're the grossest, smelliest people you could possibly be. Like, that's raw. That's like, I just slept for 6 months. This is me coming out of my slumber. That's going to be like the most natural core of that person you could find, is that like the few minutes after they wake up after hibernating.
Yeah, and I mean, that is... So do you not want to do that? But you have to, like... I'm wondering what the pressure is going to be to whether you need to hibernate with someone or alone. And that sort of really will just add an entire added dimension. So I will admit that I lacked for the numbers that others had. But as a consequence for that, I am more than happy to take questions.
Well, that's okay. My numbers don't mean anything to anybody anyway.
Your numbers are way too big, Marcus.
They're far too...
Anything bigger than 90 is too big for me.
Any number bigger than 90 is too big for you? That is good.
He's drawn a hard line,
Yep.
Which isn't great for your engineering job. in your bridge inspection job. How'd the bridge do? It's like 90% good.
90, yeah. 90 is pretty good.
90 is pretty good, and I think I was at least 90% absurd.
Yeah.
So with that, unless I am required to take more time, I believe I'm
You're good. You're good.
Pass the baton.
I'll take the reins. Yeah, so for my answer, I started out looking at like the physiology behind hibernation. I ended up focusing more on like the food aspect of like preparing for hibernation. in terms of like what you need to eat to prepare for it. But before I get into that, I just look into like what actually happens during hibernation. So an animal enters, it's not exactly sleep, but it's called torpor. So torpor is a state of where the body temperature drops and its metabolic rate drops. And the body is actually maintained at a temperature that's like just above ambient temperature, rather than its like normal operating temperature. And this allows the animal to require less food, and it lets them survive like colder temperatures. So like overall it conserves energy during the winter.
A literal sleep mode for people.
Yeah. Well, it's even like lower energy than sleep, because sleep you still like burn calories and stuff. You burn even less calories in torpor.
Yeah, but when I put my phone, or like low battery mode, like when I put my phone in low battery mode, it does nothing. It's absolutely nothing. Except just quickly drain its battery and die for some reason.
So to look at the amount of food you need to eat beforehand, so like the length of hibernation kind of varies depending on the animal you're looking at. And since we were all talking about bears and it's sort of like the most common one that people think of, I just looked at bears. So bears actually burn up to 4,000 calories per day when they're in hibernation.
Wait, what? That's so many.
It's a lot, but they're very big. Like they're way bigger
They're
than
not
humans.
that big.
So
Bears are really big.
they're really big.
How many calories do they burn when they're not in hibernation?
I don't know.
Wait, I need to jump in here. For the guy who figured out how many trains it would take to run the coal, bears aren't that big. Sounds a little bit unscientific.
To be fair, 4,000 is bigger than 90.
And even Chris was able to figure that one out.
Yeah.
I have the numbers. First, the what they call bear first stage, normal activity. Bears consume 5,000 to 8,000 calories a day. But it doesn't say how much
That's
they burn.
consumed.
Dang it!
Yeah. I didn't get that number. I had that 5,000 number later in my notes. Thanks for spoiling that.
Well, that number's too big for you anyway, Chris.
Yeah,
it's
I
more
know.
than 90. A bear burns 90 calories a day.
Yeah.
Plus.
Everything is 90.
90 plus.
Yeah, so 4,000 calories a day, and that's spread out over, I averaged to like 6 months there in hibernation. That totals to 720,000 calories for like the total session of hibernation. Now, how do bears prepare for this? They usually, between like the months of August and October, they go into what's called hyperphagia, which is just a state of like excessive hunger. Basically, the bear doesn't feel satisfied or full when they're eating. Like the trigger that tells them to stop eating doesn't happen. So they basically just continuously eat nonstop, except for like when they're sleeping. So they eat up to like 20 hours per day, and they end up eating up to 20,000 calories per day in this hyperphagia stage.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
How do they find all that food?
They just keep on wandering, I guess. I don't exactly know.
So bears are they are omnivores, so they'll eat just about anything.
Yeah, they can eat berries, they can eat fish, they can eat, yeah.
And I know black bears end up having they claim like a lot of territory. Like it'll be like half, the acres of woods will be just one bear's territory.
Right.
It's usually the time of the year that people always say to be careful about bears, because they're always wandering for food, because they're never satisfied. So it's like the most dangerous time for bears, or for people from bears.
I'm just gonna say I'm very happy we've been doing our podcast long enough that I hit a critical mass of just knowing fun facts about random topics.
Well, okay, important question. Why are those facts about bears? I feel like they come up a lot. More than they should.
Bears are just a very universal
I guess,
unit.
yeah.
It's like chicken nuggets. It's the chicken nugget of animals.
Of
Yeah.
animals? Chickens aren't the chicken nuggets of animals?
No, that's too easy.
There's no chicken
course
in
not.
chicken nuggets.
Damn it, you
Of
got to the
course
joke
not.
first.
Of course not. That's ridiculous.
So how do humans compare to this? Like how many calories do humans burn if they're in this torpor state of hibernation? To find this, I looked up what's called basal metabolic rate, which is basically just your metabolic rate if you're like completely at rest, you're doing no activity at all. And there's an equation to find this. There's actually a bunch of different equations with like varying accuracy, but one of the more accurate ones is called the Mifflin-St. Jeor equation. And it takes into account your age, your gender, and your how much you weigh. So I just assumed like a 30-year-old man that weighs 150 pounds, someone like that will burn 1,672 calories per day in a state of torpor. So spread out over 6 months, over the entire hibernation period, you'll burn 300,000 calories. So that's the amount that you need to eat beforehand to prepare for the hibernation.
That's a lot of food.
Yeah. In order to like maintain your body weight. Otherwise, if you
That totally, absolutely made me miss out on so many cool opportunities. I mean, all of it's your pre-hibernation food fest.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Olive Garden. Unlimited salad and breadsticks, and we mean
that'd be
unlimited,
perfect.
unlimited.
Everyone would love that. But if you don't hit that number, then your body's going to start to break down like your muscle mass and your bone density. And it's not going to be good. So you want to hit that number or go above it. That's fine too. So the average person eats about 2,200 calories per day to maintain their weight, just with like a normal activity level. And assuming that you're preparing like the bear over a 3-month period from like August to October, to hit the 300,000 calories, you'd have to eat more than double that. So you'd have to eat 5,500 calories per day, which is not completely out of the question. There are some people that do that in real life, like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Wait, that stat's just out there?
No,
Yeah.
we haven't seen this. It's like a thing on the internet where at some point there was like a profile where they posted his like workout and diet plan, and the
Yeah.
dude eats, it's what, like,
He eats a lot of cod.
well, it's also like, 4 or 5 pounds of cod or something a day.
Yeah, so he eats 5,000 calories per day, and he spreads it out over 7 meals. And it's usually generally, like, healthier stuff. So, like chicken, cod, we mentioned, vegetables. He actually said he stopped, or he's cutting down on cod just because the supply is kind of dwindling, I guess.
Yeah.
And they didn't say what he replaced it with, but yeah. But then there was, like, one night he tweeted one of his cheat meals. He tweeted at 2 a.m., and his cheat meal consists of 8 banana and chocolate chip pancakes
Oh my god.
and 32 individual sushi rolls.
Oh my.
Both of those together.
He's gotta be in the actual, was it hyperphagia, where he just doesn't feel the need to stop eating?
Yeah, hyperphagia. So that snack alone, like the article that I looked up, they like sort of figured out how many calories that would be. And they figured out that those two things together is 3,300 calories just for that one
Jesus.
meal.
I've actually probably come close to that in a relatively short period of time.
What
How
did
many
you eat?
how many banana pancakes did you eat?
No,
then?
so it was a day, I do distance running. It's a day where I had done like a 10-mile run, and I ordered like an order of some Indian dish along with some samosas. I ate all of those, and then we were watching football, and we ordered pizza from Domino's, and I also ate an entire Domino's pizza.
Jesus, Ben.
An entire pizza on your own? Like how big?
Like a medium Domino's pizza.
Yeah, that's probably up there in calories.
Yeah. I'm not proud of that moment. I'm a little proud of that moment.
But what you probably haven't done is what Brian Shaw has done. So Brian Shaw is the winner of the 2011, 2013, 2015, and 2016 World's Strongest Man competition. And he eats 12,000 calories per day.
What? Stupid.
Yeah.
What?
And he also spreads it out over 7 meals. And he had an article, or like a video where he was showing like everything that he eats for all the meals. I'm not going to go through all of them. But for breakfast, he eats a bowl of cereal, a spoonful of peanut butter, and 8 eggs.
I thought it was gonna be like almost reasonable for half a second. I was like, oh, just a spoonful of peanut butter to
Yeah.
help the Ritz Bits go the Reese's Puff go down.
Yep. Nope. You need the 8
Yeah, but
eggs.
Gaston ate 5 dozen eggs.
Yeah, he's better. Gaston is better.
And that's why he's frankly the size of a barge.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, no one eats like Gaston.
Yeah, you can't expect Brian Shaw to eat like Gaston. So yeah, those are 2 examples of just people that eat a lot of food. So it's not completely out of the question. But these people are eating to like build muscle, and that's not necessarily what we want. We want to build fat because bears like they store fat for later use, and that's what we want to do. So I looked at people that have gained weight based on fat, and I looked at Morgan Spurlock, who made Super Size Me. So if you don't know what Super Size Me is, it's a documentary, and he just
Documentary about what?
well, I'm gonna tell you.
Sorry, I thought you were just moving on.
He made a documentary.
The end.
Sorry. My turn to listen to the podcast.
Yeah, so the documentary was about him. He was trying to eat McDonald's for all 3 meals for every day for 30 days. And he'd only eat McDonald's. That's the only thing he was allowed to eat. And then if they asked him if he wanted to supersize it, he had to say yes. That was like one of the rules. And just to like see what the result, like what it would do to his body. And he ended up eating around 5,000 calories per day, which is what we would need for our hibernation. And at the end of his experiment, he ended up gaining 24 pounds, and he increased his body fat by 15%, that's kind of what we're looking for with our hibernation. The problem is that obviously this is not a very healthy thing to do. There's a lot of health issues that you run into. So like body mass index, they use it to measure if you're like obese or underweight or anything like that. So the scale is if you're under 18.5 kilograms per meter squared, you're underweight. If you're between 18.5 and 25, you're normal. If you're between 25 and 30, you're overweight. And if you're above 30, you're obese. Now, at the end of Super Size Me, Morgan Spurlock, he went from 23, which is in normal, to 27, which is overweight. And he only did it for 1 month. So if he had continued doing it for 3 months, he would have gone way over 30, and he would have been definitely considered obese. And the problem is that all that excess fat has really strong links to like type 2 diabetes. It causes increases your risk of heart disease, stroke. You get high cholesterol. None of that is good.
You heard it here first, folks. It's not good.
Yeah. So I wanted to look at someone else that has kind of transformed his body too, and maybe in like a different way. And I looked at Christian Bale. So he's known for like losing weight and gaining weight a lot for his roles in movies. Probably his most dramatic change was for The Machinist, where he lost 65 pounds by eating only an apple and a can of tuna a day. And he, like, if you watch that movie, he's really, really, really skinny.
It's actually like freaky.
It's like scary skinny. But then he's also bulked up in muscle for like Batman, because he played Batman. And then recently he gained 40 pounds to play Dick Cheney in the movie Vice. So for like all of his past weight fluctuations has kind of caused him health issues just in general. And he actually said that he was going to stop doing that for roles. But for this specific role, he made an exception for Dick Cheney, because he's like, this too good of an opportunity. I have to play Dick Cheney.
I'm never doing it again, unless somebody asks me to. Then I'll do it for sure.
So this time he said that he was going to try to do it in the most healthy way possible. And so nutritionists do say that there are healthier ways to put on fat in such a short amount of time. It's still not healthy, but it's healthier. And to do that, you focus on eating unsaturated fats instead of saturated fats. And foods that have unsaturated fats are things like avocado, nuts, olive oil. So if you pick the right foods, you can put on fat in a little bit of a healthier way. But still, even though it's healthier, the FDA says that it shouldn't take up more than 30% of your caloric intake. So we have that limit, which is still a problem. So the final thing that I looked at, and the solution that I came up with for this food prep thing, was I looked into a plan that SpaceWorks Enterprises came up with. They developed this for NASA in 2014. It was called Torpor-Inducing Transfer Habitat for Human Stasis to Mars.
Oh, damn. It's basically hibernation.
Yeah, it's basically hibernation. It's basically, they're looking at torpor, which is hibernation, in humans in order to reduce costs for travel to Mars. So, like, if you're in torpor, you take up less space and you require less supplies. And the plan covered, like, a bunch of different things, but they also tackled the food problem. And what they came up with was using what's called parenteral nutrition, which is basically just, it's a liquid solution that's given through an IV. and it like supplements the body with certain nutrients. So there's partial parenteral nutrition, and then there's total parenteral nutrition, or TPN. And TPN it basically contains all of the nutrients required to maintain a human body, and like you don't have to do anything else. It has everything.
It's like Soylent Green, everything you need.
Yeah, basically. So it has like dextrose, it has amino acids and electrolytes, it has lipids, it has vitamins and glutamine, all the good stuff. So hospitals actually use this like short term for like people where like their digestive systems have failed. They use them short term for them. And then there are other cases where like due to some medical condition, people are required to live on TPN for like years at a time. So it's also feasible long term. So we don't need to really change anything when we're not in hibernation. We'll just, when hibernation time comes, we'll get this TPN, we'll set it up as an IV, and then we're good.
Nice.
Everything's all
Nice
set.
and easy.
Yeah.
I like that NASA is just like, oh, that weird problem? Yeah, we did that
We
already.
already solved
Right.
it.
Thanks, NASA. You're the best.
So things are good. We do not all die.
Yeah, we didn't really have that many problems on this one.
It's like sleeping for 6 months would be great for everybody.
Yeah.
And with that totally out of character conclusion, we're going to move over to our Would You Rather section. All right, so for our Would You Rather, I'm going to direct this one first to you, Jason, since you are our special guest.
Oh no.
Would you rather box a kangaroo or tussle with a moose?
What?
Tussle.
Oh, box the kangaroo.
What?
It sounds more dangerous, but the kangaroo's weight is nowhere near as much weight as the moose. So the kangaroo might hurt me and it might go unpleasantly, but the moose could just trample me dead. I'd have no shot against the moose. Against the kangaroo, I'd get punched, I'd get hurt, I'd live. So I think I'm gonna go with the kangaroo. Unless I want to reserve because I want to hear what other people say in case I forgot something. So I'm 90% kangaroo,
Ooh.
but I want to hear the other options in case I'm missing something.
I like that 90 number.
You know, it wasn't intentional, but it was correct and makes me feel good.
All right, Ben, you no longer get to spectate. Now it's your turn to answer. Box a kangaroo, tussle with a moose.
So I've looked up the definition of the word tussle because I wanted to get some clarity on that before I made any firm decisions here.
That's an important detail.
So Merriam-Webster is so a physical contest or struggle, or an intense argument, controversy, or struggle. They use scuffle as well, which doesn't really help things. That's just as opaque as tussle.
What's a tussle? Oh, it's just like a scuffle.
Just a scuffle, you know. Also, just to be clear, a scuffle apparently implies disorder and confusion, which I think that's fair. So, man, moose are scary. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, the antlers.
The antler, well, once again, check the size of a moose.
The size and the antlers.
Yeah, like the bottom of their like stomach is like chest height on you, and then it's just like pounds and pounds and pounds of animal.
So I guess the argument I can make for I forgot the word tussling with a moose is that because of that word confusion. So if you're tussling with a moose, that could be a misunderstanding where
just be like an argument.
Right. You know, it's like, you know, you got up in each other's faces and things went a little haywire, and, you know, you realize very quickly both of you this was a bad idea and you kind of back off, whatever. If you are boxing with a kangaroo, that implies intent. That is a focused kangaroo. So I guess the question is, do you think that you can, because that kangaroo is going to put you down. Like, there's no question about it. Do you think you can...
Can you give me a situation where you're arguing with a moose that isn't you're 2/3 of the way through a Disney or Pixar film?
Oh, you've stolen my answer. Okay. Hold on. Give me a second. You are at Niagara Falls, and it thinks you're on the Canada side of the border, and you think you're still in New York. And you come to blows over it.
Are you talking about what? Fuck, Mounties or Monties? What do they call them?
No.
Monties.
Mounties don't ride moose. Come on.
No, the moose evidently cares about the border for some reason.
They're very territorial and nationalistic, apparently.
So, would the kangaroo have to follow boxing rules?
That's a good question.
Oh, that is good. Because if you kick in boxing, are you kicked out? How many times do you have to kick?
I think you probably get a warning once, and then you are disqualified afterwards.
So basically, would you rather... So it's just 2 kicks, you get kicked twice, and then the referee jumps in.
And then you win.
You got... No. I am not going to allow you people to come up with some lawyerly way around this. This is a very simple question. Fight a kangaroo or fight a moose. There's no argument that this, in my mind, that you can argue about a referee is going to come in and save you from the kangaroo.
Also, is the kangaroo wearing gloves?
Oh.
No! It's a kangaroo!
And boxing gloves.
Okay, to both of these points, bare knuckle boxing is a thing, and that traditionally does not have referees or gloves, as the name implies. So, you don't necessarily have to have those things for it to be boxing. But I do think you have to be punching, which does take away some of the power of the kangaroo. Although kickboxing is also a thing. So,
Yeah, here's my thought. There's a chance with my weak, brittle body that I could tussle a moose as hard as I could and it wouldn't care.
That's fair.
Yeah, it could just sit there and not do anything.
Like, I could, jump on a moose's back and, pull on it or try to take it out at the knees, and it might just not... It might just stand there.
Right.
You can always depend on the kindness of moose to not put you to death.
Damn, you're probably just getting murdered on both of these.
Yeah, you'll probably die on both.
Kangaroos seem meaner to me.
I'm gonna go moose. I'm planting my flag.
All right, Ben has decided moose.
Ben's decided moose.
Chris, what are you deciding?
I could really go either way on this one. I feel like you're gonna die on both of them.
Right. But I think the intent of the kangaroo is its intention. It's like it is going for you, definitely.
Right, which means you're gonna suffer less.
That's a fair
when
point.
you die. So I choose kangaroo.
Okay. All right, Marcus. Are you gonna leave me on islands?
I'm gonna take moose on the 5% chance that I literally cannot disturb it if I tried. And Jason, final answer. What is kangaroo? Would you rather?
Oh, 100% kangaroo. You guys are idiots. You guys are total idiots. I looked this up. Kangaroos weigh 89 pounds. So how much force can a kangaroo put into a punch?
They only weigh 89 pounds?
Yeah, that's what my research suggests.
Oh man, now I feel foolish.
Are you sure you're not making a 90 joke again?
No, I'm not. I looked up the numbers. I Googled it and everything. Mooses, on the other hand, the smallest possible moose weighs 440 pounds. So it is insane, and I mean completely insane, to choose the moose over the kangaroo. That is my final answer. Buzz it in. I'm good.
Counterpoint, there is that video of the kangaroo putting another kangaroo in a headlock and then staring at the camera filming it until the other kangaroo passes out. Which is still terrifying. Please tell me anyone else has seen that video.
I have.
None of us have seen that video.
It's such a good video. Just Google kangaroo headlock. I'm sure it'll come up.
Well, I don't want to be terrified of kangaroos from now on, so I choose not to.
I Googled kangaroo headlock and it's just some metal band.
God, that's such a good name.
From Australia.
Oh, no. This is, if we're going to be absurd and I hear the word metal band, I have got to plug. Has anyone heard Oakley Dokley?
I have not.
No.
They are a Ned Flanders metal band.
Oh my god.
It is insane. It is absurd. It is being plugged. I am getting no commission. I have no role. I know them not. But I've listened to it and it is amazing.
That is fantastic. Wow. Does that mean it's time to plug our stuff? We got stuff to plug. Like this podcast you're listening to.
I don't think we need
Hey, listener.
Okay.
If you like what you're listening to right now and you want more of it, leave us a review on the iTunes, on the Stitcher, on the Google Play, on where the podcasts are sold. Because giving us reviews is the number one way that you can support the show. And so please do it. It's free. It just takes a minute or 2 minutes, depending on how fast your phone is, and helps us out so very much. We would very much appreciate it. Oh, can I throw in a fun fact? I forgot a fun fact about bears hibernating.
Go for
it.
Go back to the bears.
Had found in my research.
In the middle of the CTA.
Yeah, in the middle of the CTA, I'm going to go back into the podcast and add a fun fact. So I was concerned about, when I was looking at societal things, of whether we would need to have our sanitation systems in place. And so I found out that bears are nearly unique when they hibernate in that they don't poop.
Oh yeah, I found this too.
So what a bear does is it naturally during its, awake time, it, licks its fur and whatnot, and that fur like stays in its digestive tract, and when it hibernates, it turns that hair into like a they call it a fecal plug that just kind of plugs them up good and tight for 6 to 7 months.
Is that why you thought about this? Because you're plugging something?
Oh my god.
Yes. Word association is how my brain works.
We're here. We're clear. We don't want any more bears.
All right, no more bears, no more bears. Next week, we're going to tackle something that is not bears. Well, it might have bears in it. It's statistically more likely because we are going to be doing our lightning round, where we answer a whole bunch of questions, one after the other, no prep, right off the cuff, just all the fun things that we think of. See you next week.